first game of the match, 1.5 to 1/2. His lead is beginning here in the finals.
Yeah, it was a great defense there from Yaz when he needed it. And also how he went on the counter. Again, just very, very instructive. And no time on the clock, I've got to say. So he held his nerve. Now the players don't have any time to relax as we find ourselves in a G3, I want to say kind of hybrid with a knight off and dragon structure on the board. But okay, no, it's a dragon structure, pawns on G6. But White's plan is very clear. When the bishop is fianchetted like that, you want to be jumping in at the right time with a knight going to d5. It's all about that control.
Very nice. We just saw why both players have blitz ratings of 3150 or so. In fact, Sina's blitz rating is slightly higher than Yuz's, but that's why Yuz was able to play such great chess. He's no stranger to playing very fast chess. I actually dropped my pen during that final, so my pen is now on the floor. I'm going to see if I can do commentary while picking up my pen with my foot. Not a skill I thought I'd need, but we're going to go for it. So I'm going to stay on camera, and the little sub battle is whether or not I can pick up my pen with my foot. But the knight goes to d5. Yovi, you were exactly right. Knight to d5 happened, helping strengthen this bishop in case that annoying knight ever gets captured. Pawn c3, shutting down Black's bishop. And after a4, a3 is the big idea, sacking a pawn to punch a hole, and White plays b3 in response. I might have waited for a3 to play b3 because the pawn looks a little looser on a3 than on a4. But okay, that's just me. Finally, Black gets rid of the annoying knight. The pawn does take, knight a5. And who's winning the queen side here?
Yeah, well, this is the big idea that White has. You know, you want to park up a knight to d4 to get to c6. You want to make use of that outpost on the square. And here you've just got to, again, hold firm. The rook is going to come to c1, you know, perhaps ideas of going c4 at the right time. But for the time being, it's all about just improving the pieces. Rook e1, and maybe the queen can step up to d2, bishop to g5 instead, chosen. Now I like this bishop takes bishop. I don't think I would blink. I would like to weaken the Black king. But yes, considering.
Sina played bishop f6 instantly. I get that his big plan in this match is to stay way ahead on the clock, but to just double his pawns so willingly, such an important decision. But now I think we've seen for the third game in a row, Sina is up big on the clock. That must be part of his strategy. And interestingly, Yuz did not take the bishop. He just played the move queen to d2. I'm surprised by both players' decisions, but I guess those double pawns weren't as bad as they look because the d6 pawn is very hard to touch.
Yeah, I guess so, but still, it would have been very tempting. You know, it's difficult. You know, you just have to make some very quick decisions, and this is a really nice touch there from Sina finding e5. Just remember that en passant is only a one-time offer, and that now it wasn't possible after the queen trade. And here, yes, White does have a passed pawn on c6, but it is vulnerable. It's going to fall off.
I wish we had a name for that tactic because, you know, Yovi, me and you have seen that a lot, where it's like a positional trick where you don't have time for en passant because there was a discovered attack. So, Chad, if you want to come up with a name for that tactic that we just saw, a positional tactic, let us know. But right now, it does look like c6 is more weak than helpful. A little sub note, I have a backup pen. I failed at my mission. I'm using my backup pen. Okay, but White needs a backup plan here because that strong pawn is not going to be the winning idea. Knight to d4, taking advantage of this pawn being pinned. Knight e2 is the big problem. And so White needs to deal with that. And I think that Black might just try to double up rooks or just play the move knight to b5. But the knight is proving itself every bit as worthy as the light squared bishop.
An interesting choice there from White there, going bishop to f1. I was expecting king to f1, and maybe the rook would clear the way so that the a pawn can advance. But Yaz is just simply saying, hey, I will do that first by consolidating my position, and now I'm expecting rook b4, you know, take some of the lines, rook e1, okay, just forcing Black to compromise the structure. But rook a3, interesting, maybe with ideas of going c4 at the right time.
I agree. I find these positions incredibly hard to digest. For those of you who are fans of the Grunfeld, it's almost like a Grunfeld pawn structure in reverse, where one side dominates the center, but the other side has these queen pawns. Unfortunately, unlike the Grunfeld in reverse, white would have a B and an A pawn. The pawns are separated, which might make a huge difference. And the black pieces are nicely centralized. I noticed that the white pawns are struggling getting going. So I think black might be a little bit easier to play, but the clock, again, is the important factor. I think for the third game in a row, Sina is ahead by more than a minute. This is actually his biggest time delta that he's had the entire match. He's up 1 minute and 20 seconds. Yagiz has only 19 seconds with which to play this endgame. The most important factor of the match has been the time.
Yeah, and unfortunately for white, it's also very easy for black to play. You just step in with the king is going to defend d5, and then you can just simply go rook to a8 and start targeting both weaknesses, the pawns on c3 and a4.
Well said. Now, Yagiz has proven himself up to the challenge. He plays bishop c4. I almost wonder if you can take, but probably that's not quite playable. Bishop goes back to a2, pressuring this pawn. Now, if you move the knight, we might see c4, although maybe not, because after d4, the pawns get moving and grooving, as my tennis coach says. So almost a bit of stasis here. Nobody can push the pawns the way they want to. Black has not done an effective job attacking the pawns, and the rook can't do it because he's tied down to defense. So operations are now being undertaken on the king side. Black is well advised to continue to create complications with that massive time advantage. Yagiz plays rook b1 instantly, knowing he's going to get low on time if he doesn't get going.
Yeah, and rook b1 is a very crafty move. Next idea is to go rook to b5, and suddenly reminding black that there is a passed a pawn on the board. So it's very nice. And as you mentioned, somehow the knight isn't on a good circuit there on a5. It should be defending the weakness on d5. And instead, it's up to the black king side to actually do the heavy lifting.
Yeah, I'd play f3 to force the white king to a really bad square and also induce the possibility of some back rank mates. In fact, knight c4 is now playable because after bishop takes, pawn takes, there's a back rank mate. You don't even have time to capture the c pawn. And when you stop the back rank mate, the rook's going to come down to d3. I'm actually kind of surprised that that did not happen in the game. Anyway, now the pawn gets moving, and this knight is going on a little walkabout. I'm not sure if he's really improving his lot in life. It does free the rook, though, because the d-pawn was overprotected, but c4. And it looks like white has gotten the best of the last couple moves, and the clocks are getting very close to even, as Sina has now dipped down to around 10 seconds. Yagiz is still hanging out in that 2 or 3 seconds. He's lived to tell the tale so far, but things are getting crazy.
Things are getting crazy, but the c-pawn has fallen, and that's a mighty pawn, and here it comes. Now the knight needs to get involved. Oh, no, he doesn't. Just simply needs to create another pawn, the f-pawn, and f2 is there. Rook to f4 is the only move, and now the king is in, and nothing is stopping that pawn from promoting. And yes, there you see rook to a8, and woo, a sigh of relief and a fist pump there from Sina as he strikes back to level the match.
Absolutely. A really needed win there. And we should say that black has gone